I recently used the Samsung Z Flip4 and liked it, but of course there's always going to be a but, and that one is the outer screen is so small you need to open the phone up to use it every time. Then on the Samsung Z Flip5 I have here, they fixed it by making the screen into a folder. And does this fix the issue? Well, first we need to talk about the phone. It now actually folds closed to flat, or at least looks very close if it isn't. Sizing is pretty similar to the previous flips, even with the weight being the same 187 grams as the 4. While closed, we have the aluminum frame and hinge, as well as the not Flip 4 style glossy Gorilla Glass Victus 2 on the back and on the front. But that covers the much larger screen that is now 3.4 inches, however they measure it, being a 720p AMOLED panel at 60 Hz. This, however, is a major downgrade from the cool-looking Motorola Razr Plus 2023 with its 3.6-inch 1056p 144Hz AMOLED panel. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but it does allow for easier ways to take selfies and ultra-wide shots on the better cameras. And the screen is decent, but nothing like modern Razr and flip phones, which are edge-to-edge at this point, even with 2 cameras and a flash. Like I said, we have the aluminum for the frame, the top having the Samsung logo and being the most fragile part of the phone. The left is where the 5G ultra-wideband antenna is for those that have one, as well as the SIM tray. But do remember that the phone does support eSIM. The right side is where you have the volume buttons, as well as the power button fingerprint scanner, which works great. Then on the bottom, on the top, we have the lone microphone, while the bottom has, well, 2 holes for a single microphone, the USB-C 3.2 port, or 5 gigabits per second, a first for the Flip, apparently. Finally, you can do video out on this phone. No DeX, but great for when you break the inside screen and don't want to fix it. Then of course, we have the bottom loudspeaker, which pairs for the earpiece for a great stereo feel. I don't get that vertical only feel from this phone, which is great for horizontal content, the real way to watch videos. When we have the phone open, it's an egg. Hard on the outside, weak on the inside. I replaced the screen trim about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it's already scratching. That's cool. But that's plastic, just like the 6.7-inch 1080p 120Hz flexible AMOLED panel, which looks great, being 1750 nits max, or brighter than the Z Flip 4 and Razr Plus 2023. That said, expect 500 to 800 nits depending on how you have the brightness mode set, just like the outer screen. One thing to note is that I replaced the inner screen. Well, actually, I replaced the hinge and flex cable. It was a pain, but a common failure point on many flipping and folding Samsung phones. I'm just that good. There is glass in the screen, but not on the screen, meaning your phone can decide when it wants to be brittle and just break. Honestly though, both screens are great for viewing content if you can figure out how to do it on the outer screen. That crease though, pretty noticeable. More noticeable because of what I did, which I kind of already explained, but I'll explain later. But what's inside this phone? Well, a lot. For one, we have the same IPX8 water resistance from the Flip 3 and Flip 4, but given the age, and especially since I worked on this phone, I doubt it. But the powerhouse for this phone is the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, and it is for sure getting warm doing basic stuff, but I wouldn't say that it has a heating problem. I would also never say heating problem, because that's not how you say that. Either the phone gets warm or overheats. Saying something has a heating problem would mean the same as having a cooling issue by that logic. Rant over, this phone does get warm, but not like the Samsung Galaxy S7. And this generally doesn't matter because the bottom of the phone doesn't heat up that much as the main board is on the top, like most flip phones. There's 8 GB of RAM as well as 256 or 512 GB of storage, something that makes sense because 128 GB of storage on a flip or folding phone is just rude. It's also UFS 4.0, which is fast, but personally I don't really notice much of a difference, but there is one, and it's apparently more efficient. It's also cheaper to manufacture, which I know is hilarious to throw out there given the money laundering scheme known as AI that's stealing all the chips and making them cost too much. They're also buying up all the hard drives for some reason. It is also slower than the OnePlus 13's UFS 4.0 chip. Yeah, I don't know. Moving on, this processor and RAM mix to give great performance that feels strange because it's a flip phone. It doesn't seem throttled, but like the Flip 4, it feels like it's slower than other phones with similar or worse processors. Maybe because of the screen size? I don't know. Gaming is fine, and I never really had issues with the phone, but it just doesn't feel as fast as it could be. I can't quite explain why. This supports 5G ultra-wideband, like I said, with that antenna, but we also get Wi-Fi 6E and Bluetooth 5.3. Now, the batteries are the exact same. Well, the cells are slightly different from the 4, but they do total 3,700 milliamps, which is not much for a flip phone in general, and this is no different. Unlike Motorola, battery life on this phone sucks. Not the end of the world like iPhone SE levels, but close to that 1% per minute that I got on the SE2. We do get 25 watts of wired charging, 15 watts of wireless, as well as reverse wireless charging. Motorola is similar, with the Razr Plus 2023 being 30 watts of wired and 100 milliamps more of battery, but especially with the charging speed, you won't really notice too much of a difference in real life. I assume, like the Razr, using the outer screen burns the same battery as the inner screen, but the outer screen is a weak 60Hz panel. 120 Hz on a Samsung Flip isn't until the Flip 7, while Motorola did this 2 years earlier in 2023 at 144 Hz. Overall, the specs are great on this phone. There's no corners that are cut, just a good phone depending on who you talk to. I know some people will think that the 8 Gen 1 or 8 Gen 2 are terrible chips, but they're delirious and remembering wrong. What I don't disagree with are the cameras. The small 10 megapixel inner front camera is good enough, not being focusable as usual for a folding or flipping phone, but only just good enough. 4K 60 frames per second for video is great if you need it. Then the rear cameras are predictable and the same as the Flip 4, with this line only getting a real upgrade with the Flip 6. The ultra-wide camera is a fixed focus 12 megapixel sensor, so good enough shots, but ironically a smaller sensor size when compared to the front. Then we have the 12 megapixel main camera, which bumps up from the 1/2.55 inch sensor on the 3, but it is the same optically stabilized camera as the 1/1.76 inch sensor on the Flip 4. Photos are not bad, but also not a standout feature. And yes, I know I have some glue on the camera, but even with that, it's not ruining the photos. We also get 4K 60 frames per second video, which comes out looking pretty decent. It's interesting to see that they shifted the cameras for the bigger screen, but it does still feel like they were copying Motorola. The camera flash is still here, so you can blind yourself with a flash if you'd like. Like I said, the camera sensors are not the worst, but let's be honest, most flip phones feel like they phone in the camera section. Now, my question is, why is this phone like that? Sure, flipping phones are cool, and the modern Razr looks like old Samsung flip phones, but Samsung has to copy Apple with its restrictions. Out of the box, if you kill the inner screen, you're done. Out of the box on a Motorola, even with the 2019 Razr, you can still use the outer screen for apps for like 99% of things. Yeah, you can use Good Lock and blah blah blah, but I mean natively. Even when you do open apps on the outer screen, they're heavily limited. On the Razr, you click a notification and you can open into it. On the Samsung, you get a notification and that's pretty much it. Maybe there's some quick replies at times, but nothing like what Motorola did before 5G iPhones. So really, it's a smaller screen with less options. And you might have to rely on this because the inner screens do fail more often than other flip phones, not by Samsung. Sure, they might have more sales than other companies, which I'm honestly not too sure about, but it doesn't make it not true. I'd like to see Samsung, Motorola, and others give me numbers of real customers complaining about their screens failing, seeing the real facts, not some extremely strict, consistent stress test. Because like that, the inner flex cable failed on this phone. So I had to open it up to replace the cable, which was fun and scary to do, but like I said, I'm just that good. But maybe you're not, and now you have to pay $200 plus to fix a manufacturing defect. Why is that your problem? But when it works, it's great, right? When you start to fold the inner screen, this button pops up and you can do stuff like this. It's a per app basis, but what insane asylum do you go to for those folding it and typing on it like it's a computer? When you're folding the camera, it just looks like normal phones, so still centered for vertical content like this. Also, you should probably swivel it like this so you can get better picture quality. And if you turn the phone on its side, and if horizontal video works for you, I guess you have a side kickstand? The fold phones are better for this feature, truly. So sure, it's not a Samsung only issue, but the reality of using these features is kind of flawed. Heck, the other day I took a group selfie with the ultra-wide camera because it can be taken like this. This gave me a 9 megapixel shot because it's full, whatever that aspect ratio is. But the 4x3 full sensor looks like this on the outer screen, which definitely breaks the immersion, per se. Even with this large screen and the allure of the larger Z Flip 7 screens, this is just like Motorola. fixes an issue but doesn't solve the problem of flipping phones in general. When they master the wide fold or make a lighter and thinner pixel fold, flip phones will just become pointless. But of course, this comes down to price. $250 plus for this phone or $325 plus for an S23 Plus. I can see the argument for going for the Flip 5. That said, the Razr Plus 2024 has similar and better specs technically for around the same price, so maybe that might be the better way to go. I've seen some Razr Ultra 2025 sales too, so there is that. I will say this phone does feel solid, not to say that others don't, but it does feel pretty durable, besides the whole hinge trying to kill your phone thing. At least this phone doesn't feel cheap when it vibrates, and the audio quality is not bad at all. If you're looking for a flip phone, you'll probably enjoy this phone. It is running Android 16 right now, while my similar aged Razr Plus 2023 is not. After 5 years, it solves a lot of problems that the first one had, but not all the ones that the Flip 7 solves. I really like the Flip 7 because, like the Fold 7, the outer screen and body is actually wide and doesn't feel narrow anymore. I honestly wouldn't mind testing that phone in the future. And that's my review of the Samsung Flip 5, the better but not perfect flip phone. I would still say the Motorola Razr Plus 2023 is my favorite flip that I've used, while the Pixel Fold is my favorite fold. But maybe I need more phones and more views to pay for those phones. What do you think about this phone? Let me know, and as always, thanks for joining the 1%, and thanks for watching.